Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. The small town of Maplewood had always been a haven of tranquility. Nestled among sprawling hills and lush forests, its streets, lined with quaint houses and well-kept gardens, exuded a charm that had earned it a reputation as a perfect place to raise a family. The town's population hovered around 5,000, and although everyone seemed to know each other, secrets lingered in the silences between friendly greetings. Then came the summer of 2023, a season that began with promise and ended in dread. It was during the scorching days of July that the peace of Maplewood was shattered. The local newspaper, the Maplewood Gazette, reluctantly printed its most disturbing headline in decades. Local teacher found dead in home. The victim, Jessica Hartman, was a well-loved figure in the community, celebrated for her kindness and devotion as a fourth-grade teacher at Maplewood Elementary. Her body was discovered by her husband, Mark Hartman, who returned from work to find their home enveloped in an eerie stillness. Paramedics pronounced her dead at the scene, an apparent victim of foul play. Investigators arrived, plundering the very fabric of the town's serenity, processing the crime scene and searching for clues. But in a town where everyone knew everyone, how could this happen? The question hung heavy in the humid air. On the railway, left unanswered, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the closed curtains of Maplewood's homes. In the days that followed, whispers rose like a tide, and the familiar faces of neighbors began to reflect unseen, looming specter of death, mingling uncomfortably with the mundane rituals of daily life. The victim, Jessica Hartman, had always dreamed of becoming a teacher. From a young age, she could be found setting up a makeshift classroom in her family's living room, instructing her younger siblings with a blend of patience and enthusiasm that captivated even their disinterest. After completing her degree in education, she returned to her hometown of Maplewood, eager to instill the same love for learning in her students. She filled her classroom with bright posters and interactive learning stations, her warm smile inviting even the most reluctant learners to engage. Jessica's approach went beyond textbooks. She fostered an environment where curiosity thrived, always taking time to ensure every child felt seen and valued. Parents praised her dedication, often sending heartfelt notes of appreciation, and her classroom had quickly become a second home for many children. Outside of her professional life, Jessica was known for her volunteer work at the local community center, organizing reading programs and summer camps. Friends described her as a shining light, someone who tirelessly uplifted others. But beneath her cheerful exterior lay layers of complexity. Jessica held deep-seated fears of failure and often faced personal struggles masked by her radiant smile. On the day she was found dead, Jessica had made plans for an evening gathering at the community center, eager to bring together families and foster connections in the town. Her husband, Mark, had already prepared a presentation on local wildlife to share with the children. The couple had recently celebrated their 7th wedding anniversary, expressing hopes of starting a family in the near future. As news of Jessica's tragic death spread through Maplewood, the community, grappling with loss, couldn't help but remember the vibrant woman taken too soon. Jessica's absence left an indelible mark on those who knew her, creating a shared sense of grief that would intertwine their lives as they sought understanding in the wake of such a profound tragedy. The crime scene. The afternoon heat was oppressive as Detective Sarah Mitchell parked her cruiser outside the Hartman residence. The modest two-story home now bore the weight of tragedy, its facade transformed by the vivid stains of tape cordoning off the front door. Yellow police tape fluttered like a warning flag in the gentle breeze as officers maintained a respectful distance, their somber expressions mirroring the emotional gravity of the scene. Inside, the atmosphere felt charged, thick with unease. Jessica's living room was furnished in a cozy but chaotic manner. Toys from the couple's young nephew scattered across the hardwood floor, vividly contrasting with the grim circumstances that had redrawn the lines of this household. Jessica's personal touches, family photographs adorning the mantel, whimsical classroom projects hanging on the walls whispered reminders of the life once lived here. Detective Mitchell stepped carefully over the threshold, noting the dispatched paramedics' hasty work. The body now removed for examination, she instinctively searched the room for signs of struggle, misplaced items, anything that could illuminate Jessica's final moments. Her eyes fell to the coffee table. A half-finished cup of tea rested precariously close to the edge, untouched by time. Nearby, a book lay open, pages bent like a paper flower reaching for light, revealing a world left unexplored. A uniformed officer approached, clipboard in hand. The initial report suggested blunt force trauma, with signs of a struggle evident. Furniture shifted, cushions askew. The couple's bedroom door hung slightly ajar, piquing the detective's interest. As she pushed the door open, the darkness inside enveloped her. The bed was unmade, sheets tangled, as if someone had gotten up in haste. She noted the broken lamp on the floor, a victim's last, desperate attempt to defend herself against an unseen assailant. Detective Mitchell paused to collect herself. It was easy to feel overwhelmed by the tragedy. But her job required detachment, methodical exploration. Who would want to hurt someone like Jessica? With each item she examined, each detail she logged, the gravity of the investigation settled deeper within her. Time slipped quietly away, swallowed by the lingering air of the crime scene. As the townspeople waited in uncertainty, their lives irrevocably intertwined with the outcome of this ominous investigation. The early investigation. In the days that followed Jessica Hartman's death, Detective Sarah Mitchell and her team worked tirelessly, piecing together fragments of a life irrevocably silent. The heart of Maplewood beat on, but the palpable tension had turned the town into a pressure cooker of speculation and whispered fears. Each face they encountered bore the shadow of disbelief, and it was this feeling that drove the detectives to dig deeper. Their first steps led them to interview Mark Hartman, still reeling from his wife's murder, and ensconced in a haze of grief. He sat in the living room where Jessica had been found, an overwhelming sadness clouding his eyes. His hands trembled as he recounted the events leading up to that fateful afternoon, a regular workday, overshadowed by an impenetrable fog of love. Mark described how he had left home early that morning, a kiss on Jessica's forehead, a promise to be back in time for dinner. But the weight of his guilt became apparent as the conversation unfolded. "I should have been there," he muttered, cracking under the pressure of interrogation. "I shouldn't have left her alone." The detectives noted the inconsistencies in his timeline, but the raw sorrow in his voice made it difficult to draw conclusions. Once he left, They turned their focus to the community. They canvassed the neighborhoods, seeking anyone who might have crossed paths with Jessica on her last day, a jogger who might have seen something, or a neighbor who may have heard raised voices. As interviews unfolded, a web of Jessica's relationships revealed itself. Friends spoke of her warmth, but also noted hints of conflict, faint murmurings about a former student who had been expelled the previous semester under dubious circumstances. A boy with a troubled past, they recalled, whose anger had simmered quietly. Fueled by the community's anxiety, the detectives also focused on the teacher's social life. Jessica had long-standing relationships with various members of the town board, who had openly admired her work, but had recently been engaged in undercurrents of debates over education funding. The questioning of motives drifted into insidious territory, a storm brewing in a town that had once felt so safe. With each new thread pulled, Detective Mitchell realized the investigation's trajectories were far from straightforward. The tension was building not just between the investigators and potential leads, but within the very fabric of Maplewood itself. Secrets began to surface. Old grievances were surfacing, and everyone was suspect. The dead ends. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation into Jessica Hartman's murder hit myriad snags, each promising lead dissolving into frustration and confusion. Detective Sarah Mitchell often found herself navigating a maze filled with misleading information, tangled emotions, and anxiety that seemed to grip the entire town. The burden of finding justice weighed heavily on her shoulders, propelling her further into the spiral of uncertainty. The former student, Lucas Chambers, initially emerged as a compelling suspect, but proved elusive. Witnesses associated with the school, although ready to recount tales of his errant behavior, revealed that he had moved out of Maplewood shortly after being expelled. Searching for anyone who may have seen him brought nothing but dead ends. His trail had grown cold, like the autumn leaves beginning to blanket the streets of the town. As they pursued leads from Jessica's friends, the focus shifted to her social circle. A gathering organized to celebrate Jessica's achievements at work suddenly became a focal point for suspicion. Conversations about jealousy and resentment emulated around a shared glass of wine. One revelation came from Megan, a close friend who nervously admitted she'd overheard Jessica argue with a colleague over the direction of their curriculum just a week before her death. But pressing further into this conflict bore no fruit, leading nowhere but a variety of she said, accusations. Detective Mitchell devoted hours to reviewing neighborhood surveillance footage, hoping to capture anything that could provide insight. However, the convenience of blind spots and the absence of witnesses made this venture feel fruitless. Bits and pieces of daily life rolled on in the tapes. People running errands, children playing, but little more than the mundane. Frustration mounted as her hopes dwindled. With every passing day, Maplewood grew restless. Rumors twisted through the streets like smoke, fueling fear and paranoia. Local gossip hinted at marital infidelity, or even an underground drug problem, none of which could be substantiated. What started as innocent speculation morphed into unrelenting scrutiny, blurring the lines between neighbors and friends. At the heart of it all, Detective Mitchell grappled with a mounting sense of urgency to find the truth amid the confusion, just as she began to feel trapped within the web they were weaving. A glimmer of hope surfaced, seemingly unrelated call that would bring everything tumbling down from the precarious heights of First Street. Perhaps it was time to step back, reflect, and reconsider the very foundations they were standing upon. A break in the case. Hours passed in a haze of paperwork and half-filled coffee cups when Detective Sarah Mitchell received a call that suggested the fog might begin to clear. It was Officer Daniel Reed, his voice forged with urgency. "We've got something you should see." A local resident reported hearing something unusual on the night Jessica died. Mitchell's heart raced. She quickly gathered her notes and made her way to the precinct, where Officer Reed awaited. A resident on Mill Street, just a few blocks from the Hartman home, heard unsettling sounds around 10 p.m. that night, sounds that could have been a struggle, he explained, the air charged with anticipation. The resident, Mrs. Helen Jenkins, a widow in her 60s, had initially thought nothing of it. It wasn't until the weight of Jessica's murder pressed down on her conscience that she felt compelled to come forward. "I heard two voices," she recounted, her fingers shaking slightly. "It was loud, maybe an argument. And then there was a thud. I thought it was just the TV or something." Mitchell leaned in, captivated. "Did you see anyone?" "No. But I thought I saw a shadowy figure near the side of the house," she answered hesitantly, her brow furrowing as she tried to recall the night. "I didn't want to get involved. You hear things all the time, you know?" The detective nodded, understanding the hesitation that gripped many in tight-knit communities. Yet, this was a beacon of hope. Reviewing the timeline, they dissected the events. Jessica was last seen at 4 p.m. The night of her murder was punctuated with accounts that now stuck with a new intensity, drawing clear lines in a previously blurred narrative. That night, Mitchell and her team visited the Hartman house again, retracing their steps with renewed vigor. They scoured the outside area, focusing on the side of the house, illuminated by a streetlight. As the shadows danced under the flickering light, Mitchell's thoughts swirled. Was it possible that the long-standing rumor of emotional distress surrounding Jessica's work had turned to something darker? It was in this moment of contemplation that a glint caught her eye. With a careful examination of the flower bed near the side entrance, Sarah's heart surged. She discovered something barely visible beneath the soil. A small, broken bracelet, dotted with colorful beads. Jessica's style flashed in her mind, and she reached down to retrieve it with trembling hands. As they cataloged the evidence, a sense of clarity surpassed their desperation. Tension had awakened in the community, and while the case still lay shrouded in mysteries, the first true lead had surfaced. Detective Mitchell felt a renewed purpose as she realized the path ahead might just lead them to answers amid the silenced pleas for justice. The suspect, with the broken bracelet now entered as evidence, Detective Sarah Mitchell began to piece together the fabric of Jessica Hartman's life that had unraveled in unexpected ways. The discovery prompted a flurry of activity, and as they sought to understand its significance, they turned their attention back to her social circle, beginning with her colleague, Laura Evans. Laura had been a co-worker and friend to Jessica, yet whispers lingered in the air about their increasingly strained relationship. As the curriculum debate resurfaced during earlier interviews, it became apparent that their professional bond had begun to fray. Laura had been advocating for a more rigorous curricula, while Jessica had fought to keep things vibrant and engaging, arguing for the children's best interests. Detective Mitchell requested an interview with Laura, an appointment set in the conference room at the precinct. The moment Laura entered, her demeanor projected a mixture of tension and defiance, eyes darting as if searching for an escape. can't believe this is happening," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We were all devastated. But Jessica and I had our differences. It were all benign." "Was it?" Mitchell prompted, studying her body language. "You were close friends, Scan. You explain why things changed." Laura's breath quickened, the defensiveness spilling from her lips. "Everyone disagrees at work. She was stubborn. She wouldn't listen. I didn't hate her," she stammered, veiling her emotions with an air of indignation. As the conversation deepened, Mitchell began to notice cracks in Laura's facade, revealing a smoldering resentment that flickered beneath her surface. "What about the night Jessica died?" Mitchell pressed. "You didn't happen to see or hear anything unusual?" To this, Laura hesitated, a shadow crossing her face. "No, I was home, just studying for the upcoming board meeting. I don't know what else to say." There was the tight-lipped, defensive tone that Mitchell had come to recognize. The movement of Laura's hands told a different story. They fidgeted in her lap, betraying the inner turmoil belied by her calculated responses. Once Laura left the room, Mitchell pondered over her words and actions. Her agitation during that crucial timeline was troubling, though Laura claimed innocence. Could it be that old grievances and a burst of emotions had spiraled into something darker on that fateful night? As the sun dipped below the horizon outside, a creeping energy coursed through the precinct. Laura had become a person of interest, and as Mitchell conferred with her team, they prepared to dive deeper into her background, searching for any connection that could link her to that fractured bracelet. The dawn of new revelations loomed, and Maplewood held its breath for the truth that teetered at the edge of awareness. The trial. The tension in the Maplewood courthouse was palpable as the trial of Laura Evans unfolded. Onlookers packed the benches, faces etched with a mix of anxiety and curiosity. The small-town ambience had given way to an atmosphere thick with anticipation, not only for justice, but for answers that felt long overdue. Detective Sarah Mitchell sat quietly behind the prosecution team, her focus unwavering as the judge entered the room. Laura, clad in a muted gray suit, sat across the aisle, her expression a calculated mask of composure, yet the tremor in her hands revealed the storm boiling beneath the surface. As the proceedings commenced, the prosecution outlined the case: a broken bracelet, the victim's blood, and a mounting body of evidence that hinted at superficial wounds, festering deeper between Laura and Jessica. They presented testimonies from colleagues who noted heightened tensions in the staff room, and from students who observed a shift in Jessica's demeanor leading up to her death. Mitchell listened intently as the prosecutor detailed the timeline of events that precipitated the tragedy. They highlighted the arguments, the resignations of friendships, and the implications of jealousy buried beneath the surface of their professional interaction. The prosecution painted a vivid picture of competition gone awry, drawn from a mixture of personal ambition and professional rivalry, suggesting that Laura's resentment could have festered into something far more sinister. Laura's defense attorney wasted no time rebutting the claims, framing the events in a different light. He depicted Laura as an innocent bystander caught in a web of tragedy spun by a community eager to find a scapegoat. "There is no blood, no weapon, and no definitive proof," he argued. "You've all been swept away by fear and anticipation. The real killer is still out there hiding in the shadows." As he spoke, Mitchell could sense the mounting frustration from the gallery. The words felt hollow, alongside the emotional weight of the evidence that lingered. The defense's claims lacked substance, a desperate attempt to muddle the truth, yet doubt reared its head among the townspeople. The courtroom buzzed with mixed emotions when Laura took the stand, her demeanor shifting from composed to distraught as she recounted her last moments with Jessica. Tears cascaded down her cheeks, creating a stark contrast to the calculated defenses she had previously displayed. I loved her like a sister. She sobbed. We had our disagreements. I was home working with the jury on age. Mitchell felt a strong urge to rise and challenge Laura's narrative. Memories of the broken bracelet and the tense interviews coursed through her mind, yet she remained rooted in her seat, knowing that the evidence had to speak for itself. The trial dragged through its course, the atmosphere growing heavy with the unspoken fears of what daily life might look like with a murderer in their midst. After lengthy deliberations, the jury retreated to reach a verdict, leaving the gallery in a hushed confusion beneath a shroud of uncertainty. Time felt suspended as the doors swung open once more. The hush in the room was deafening as the foreman cleared his throat, eyes starting to Laura, who sat frozen in anticipation. And as the verdict echoed through the stillness of the courtroom, Maplewood braced itself for the revelation of truth, whatever form it might take. Aftermath. The verdict hung in the air like a summer storm cloud, heavy and palpable. We find the defendant, Laura Evans, guilty of second-degree murder. The foreman announced, a solemnity taking root in the room. Gasps erupted from the gathered crowd while Laura's face drained of color, disbelief mingling with despair. A few supporters in the audience wept, while others glared, their emotions swirling together in a chaotic maelstrom of relief, anger, and sorrow. Detective Sarah Mitchell felt the weight of the moment settle deeply within. The quest for justice, once a feral pursuit, now transformed into an unsettling reality. Laura was led away in handcuffs, her sobs echoing slowly, hauntingly, through the hallowed halls of the courthouse. Friends turned into adversaries. Trust shattered, the very fabric of Maplewood susceptible to the sharp edges of loss. With the conviction secured, Mitchell's sense of closure was tempered by the knowledge that lives had forever changed. Jessica's absence echoed in the hallways of the school where laughter once spilled from classrooms. The vibrant atmosphere replaced by a sense of mourning. Grief rippled through the community, binding neighbors closer, even as they retreated into silence. In the weeks following the trial, Jessica Hartman became a symbol of both tragedy and resilience. Her beloved classroom transformed into a tributia wall filled with photographs and letters written by her students, sharing their cherished memories and yearning for the teacher who had uplifted their lives. The town organized a memorial in her honor, a bittersweet celebration aimed at healing. Yet, shadows lingered. As local reporters and curious onlookers flooded Maplewood, tension simmered beneath the surface, revealing the fault lines within the community. Those long-held secrets and silenced grievances began to rise to the surface, threatening to disrupt the fragile bond that remained. The narrative of the trial, once clear-cut, now faced a myriad of challenges as the whispers of doubt began to circulate. Had Laura really acted alone? Detective Mitchell found herself drawn back into the community, even as life settled into its new rhythm. Her cell phone buzzed with calls regarding lingering evidence and overlooked sources. As stunned townsfolk reeled from the fallout of Laura's conviction, months of speculation twisted in unexpected directions, rekindling conversations about the sympathy-fueled fears that had taken root since the tragedy. As the seasons changed, so too did the scars left on Maplewood. Each passing flower in spring felt like a defiance against the confines of despair that had settled upon the town. But the question remained. Had justice truly been served? Was the case of Jessica Hartman closed? Or was it merely the beginning of a deeper, more complex exploration into the human psyche and the unseen demons that lurked in even the most idyllic thoughts? In this quiet aftermath, Mitchell gazed into the future, ready to confront whatever mystery might emerge from the shadows, a renewed determination lingering in her heart. For Maplewood had its stories, and above all, the truth waited, patient and unwavering, to be uncovered. Reflection. As the chill of autumn settled over Maplewood, Detective Sarah Mitchell found herself at the edge of the town's serene pond, where the water mirrored the sky's shifting hues. The vibrant bursts of orange and yellow leaves served as reminders of the passing tide. Yet her heart lingered on memories far dark. In the weeks since Laura's conviction, life had resumed its normal rhythms, but the whispers of Jessica's murder cast shadows over her daily routine. Mitchell often revisited moments from the investigation, fragments of conversations, glances exchanged, the weight of unspoken fears brought to light. It was a reminder that in seeking truth, lives would be irrevocably altered, their stories intertwined with her own. The trial had brought closure for many, yet something within her felt unresolved. Had they truly uncovered the full spectrum of Jessica's life, or merely scratched the surface of the turbulent undercurrents that swirled beneath? The persistence of doubt haunted her, mingled with hope for a brighter future for Maplewood, a place where they could heal, remember, yet also grow stronger together.